Hi, my name is Esirisa Victoria Ebukari, and I wrote my IELTS exam on the 16th of September 2023. I was tutored by Miss Frances Obona. So, my experience before the exam was basically one of struggle because I registered for my exam late and I was finding it very difficult to prepare myself because I registered without using an organization. So I knew Frances was an instructor and I reached out to her and asked for her help. We discussed everything and then we set up classes. During the class, she taught me about each of the tests I was to take: the listening, speaking, reading, and writing. We did this class a day to my exam. Before then, I wasn't confident in my score. I mean, I was just confident that maybe I would get like a 4.5 in writing. Like, that's how bad it was. I thought I was going to fail. So after we finished doing our classes, on the 16th, I went to write my exams. So the classes happened on the 15th. When I wrote my exams, at first, I was afraid when everyone else was going in and I was still sitting outside waiting for my turn. When I eventually went in for speaking, all the videos and the cues that Francis gave me, I kept them in mind and I used them. And I came out feeling very confident and happy. During the region exam, I think I even I read and wrote my answers and then I fell asleep. The listening exam went very well because I listened to what she told me as well, and I ensured that I didn't let any external noises disturb me when I was doing my exams. As for the writing exam, well, even though I wasn't 100% certain that like I did well, I knew I followed her instructions to the letter. And when my results came out, I got an 8.5 over 9 overall. And I got 8.5 in everything but writing, which I got 7.0 in because, like I said, I wasn't that confident. Um, what I would really like to say is that Frances is a very amazing instructor because without her guidance, I don't think I would have gotten such a high score. And I believe that, well, if you have the opportunity to work with her, you won't regret it because it was a really amazing experience for me. Her patience, her resilience. I mean, we were at our lessons from 4 p.m. till past midnight from the 15th to the 16th, and she didn't stop. She didn't relent until she was confident that, okay, if this girl goes in, she's going to pass and she's going to come out. So I love the fact that she was really relentless and she helped me, like, broaden my plans because of the score I got now, I heard I can just directly apply to Australia for immigration, which wasn't something I could have done before because I wasn't confident in getting such a high score. So I just really like to tell her thank you so so much for the amazing job that you did.
Good afternoon. My name is Frances Obona, and I'm an IDP Mode Education IELTS agent. Now, I'm here to introduce IELTS. So, what is IELTS? IELTS is an English proficiency exam by Cambridge Assessment, IDP Australia, and British Council. It's used to test how well you can speak English, how well you can write in English, and how well you can actually hear English words. So, let's look at the parts of IELTS. There are four parts to the IELTS test. There's the listening, there's the reading, there's the writing, and there's the speaking. Now, listening is for 30 minutes, and then you have 10 minutes to transfer your answer from the question paper to the answer sheet. This is only available to paper based test candidates. Now we have writing. There are two parts to writing: there's a task 1 and there's a task 2. We also have reading. Reading has 40 questions, and you have 60 minutes to answer your questions. So in total, we have the listening, the reading, the writing, and oh, we have the speaking. The speaking has three parts. It has the part one, which are personal questions, part two, which is a cue card with a random question, and then we have the part three, which are usually questions concerning global issues that relate to your part two question. So I hope you've learned something about the parts to the IELTS test. Okay, so let's look at the skills we need to ace our IELTS test. Now, we'll be looking at listening first. So, listening, like I had earlier said, it has 40 questions, and then you get to answer these 40 questions under 30 minutes. Then you have 10 minutes extra to transfer your answers from your question paper to your answer sheet. This is only for paper-based test candidates. What skills do you need to ace your listening test? The first skill you need is to follow the instructions. It's very important that you actually take time to go through the questions before the listening starts to play, because listening is only played once. Secondly, you need to listen actively. That means inside the exam hall, you should solely focus on the questions and what you're hearing, because there can be temptation to say, oh, I want to think about what's going on in my life while the audio is playing, or I want to think about something else, I'm hearing noise from outside. And because listening is not going to play the game, you're most likely to miss, your answers if you're thinking of something else while listening to the audio. Now, the third thing I would always say is, in case you make a mistake and you miss an answer, please skip it and continue finding the answers to the other questions. Why? Because the moment you start looking for that answer, you're most likely to miss the next 5 answers. What am I trying to say? So if I'm on number 2 and I miss the answer for number 2, instead of trying to figure out what the speaker might have said, I would move on to question 3, question 4, question 5, and question 6. Because the moment I start thinking of what the answer of question 2 might be, I'm most likely to miss all the other questions till question 9. So always make sure you can skip an answer or skip a question when you don't know what the answer is. Finally, please proofread your work for any spelling error or any issues in your answers, because it's very important to proofread. Most of the times in IELTS tests, the reason why students fail is not because they don't know the answer, but simply because they had a bit of errors in their spelling or in how they wrote the answers. So let's look at writing and speaking. Now, writing is for 1 hour and it has 2 parts. It has the task 1 and it has the task 2. Now, if you're writing academic, you're most likely going to get a task 1 that has to do with a diagram, and you're expected to report what you see, compare and contrast, or explain how that is what's on the diagram, maybe something about production. If you're writing general, your task 1 is most likely a letter writing question. Now for task 2 is mostly essay writing. It can be several forms of essay, such as discussion, disadvantages, double question essays. Really, it can be any form of essay. But there are usually 5 types of essays that come out in IELTS, but I'm not going to be saying that in this video. So how can you ace your writing test? The first thing you need to understand is that there's actually a marking guide on how examiners mark your writing. So when they are marking your writing task 1, they mark you on 4 major criteria. The first one is your coherence and cohesion. The ability of your examiner to understand what you have written, how legible is your work, and is there a flow or a pattern in what you're writing. Then they also grade you on lexical resources. Lexical resources has to do with vocabulary, modern words that are used in English language. Then they also grade you on grammatical range and accuracy. So your use of tenses, your use of compound sentences, your use of synonyms, are you avoiding repetition? Then they finally they grade you on task achievement. Task achievement has to do with, are you able to answer all the questions you've been asked? So these 4 criteria are actually scored 25%, 25% each, which make up 100%. Now let's look at writing task 2. For writing task 2, you're graded with the same 4 criteria, but the only difference is that instead of task achievement, you're graded with task response, which also means how well you respond to the question. So how can I ace my writing? The first tip I always give is, for your writing task 1, please follow the bullet points. So the first bullet point in your general question is, explain why you like this job. Please do that. Don't start answering the bullet points from the last one to the first one. Answer it in the order it's been given. Now for your essay writing, if you want to pass your task 2 essay writing, it's important that you follow this guide I'm about to give. So make sure that both your task 1 and task 2 have 4 paragraphs. And then in your essay writing question, Make sure that you use your paragraph 1 to paraphrase your question, and then use your paragraph 2 to give your opinion on the first question with examples. And then in your paragraph 3, you give your other opinion on the second question and you also give examples. And then in your fourth paragraph, you conclude and you either predict or you recommend your conclusion. That's the best way to pass your IELTS writing. Now let's look at speaking. Speaking has similar tips. The only difference that is that in speaking, you're marked based on these four criteria: your fluency and your coherence. How well do you speak? Do you stop when you're speaking? And can your examiner understand what you're saying? Grammatical range and accuracy, your use of tenses, your use of synonyms, the ability to avoid repetition, and your use of compound sentences. Your pronunciation, how well do you pronounce words? And then lexical resources, your use of modern English or vocabulary. Now, I always say this to people during speaking: please don't fake an accent. They all know you're Nigerian. We all know you're Nigerian or you're Indian or wherever you're from. So just make sure you pronounce the words well. And how can you make sure you pronounce the words well? By doing your research. So I would be giving a tip in my paid classes on the kind of research that can help you pass your IELTS speaking when it comes to pronunciation, so that you don't have to fake an accent, but you can actually pronounce words the right way they're supposed to be pronounced. So I hope this has helped you with your writing and your speaking. Do have an amazing day, and God bless you.